Hello, this is Stephen Nojiri, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. In this video, we will discuss the first of the 5 supernatural powers taught in the Kusunoki tradition. So in the Kusunoki tradition, there is a teaching called the 5 supernatural powers, and those are the power of the Tao, the power of reality, or you could say the power of the truth. Then there's the power of the mind. Then there is the power of the gods. Then there is the power of interconnection, or you could say the power of interdependence. These are crucial, fundamental teachings. These are when you think of the Kusunoki tradition, you have all of the different teachings and the techniques. But these are teachings based upon the view of the system, the worldview, the foundation of the system. So you can, in order to truly understand the Kusunoki tradition, of course you have to learn all the methods and the techniques, but you have to understand this worldview. If the worldview is not present, then you're not really studying Kusunoki-ryu. You might be dabbling with a technique, but to truly train, study, understand the system as it is supposed to be, you need to understand the view. So for this video, we're going to look at number 1, the power of the Tao, and then future videos will go into the remaining powers. Now, the teachings of these powers comes from a section of the Kusunoki Karen, a particular document, which involves a lot of esoteric and spiritual teachings. And according to the text itself, one should recite a mantra of cleansing prior to study, and then a mantra of increasing merit afterwards. And the text gives specific mantra to recite. While it is unclear if the mantra is to be recited for anything from this text or just a particular section, because there's a very esoteric origin of the world teaching, and this is where it also talks about using these mantras. But that's the first part of the text. So it's a little unclear if the mantras are supposed to be done just when teaching the origin of the world or anything from the text. So to be safe, to honor the text, I've decided that it's best to chant the mantras regarding anything that comes from this particular document. So first I will do the cleansing mantra, and then we will do the merit mantra at the end of the video. Om Shri Shri Maga Shu Shri Shri Soaga Om Shri Shri Maga Shri Shu Shri Soaga Om Shri Shri Maga Shri Shu Shri Soaga. So with that cleansing mantra, then we proceed forward to discuss the power of the Tao. And the power of the Tao breaks down into the following. So there is the method of a lenient government. Next is achieving harmony and freedom of choice. Next is destroying the enemy and obtaining soldiers. And then it closes with liberation through wisdom and intelligence. Now we're going to go through each of these 4. And remember that these teachings are just introductions to the concepts. They're the basic ideas of which to build the worldview. So these concepts form the foundation of the worldview, and they also further the study of the Kusunoki tradition. So again, you can have all of the different techniques, but without the worldview, you're lacking the very foundation. So this is building that foundation. So let's start with the method of a lenient government. So you can see the kanji in the top right. That kanji, so we say lenient government, or a lenient government, a gentle government. It's a government that is open-minded. It's not a government that is rigid and strict. It's a government that is flexible. It has principles and it has order, but there's a gentleness to it. There's a leniency to it. And peace and security. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just present the main points, and then I may speak a little bit from the text itself. So the text, of course, is like pages and pages and pages, and what I'm doing is pulling, key concepts out to present to you. So peace and security are the goal. Okay, so first and foremost, it's not fame, it's not profit. It's peace and security of the people. And then it also discusses how government is just like warfare, and that there are methods and techniques. So just like in order to do warfare, you have to learn methods and techniques, one must also study and train in government methods. Government's not just something that you do spontaneously. You don't just wing it. It too has trainings. It too has methods. It has, such and such jutsu, such and such, methods, etc., etc. So just like warfare, you have to train for government as well. Another key thing is that you must place skilled and qualified individuals into positions. Do not give positions based on lineage or favors. Or you may have a warrior who was very, very, very successful in a battle. He really showed his bravery, but you don't give him a government position just because he was a good warrior. He has to be the right person for that position. So this is a key thing here. It is considered a compassionate and kind act for the ruler to put the correct people into correct positions. It is considered cruel and unusual punishment to the people to put the wrong people into those positions. And you'll see, and so looking back through history, of course, we can see so many failed governments because they put people into positions and that person wasn't qualified at all. Even today in our modern times, we see government struggling because unqualified individuals are placed into positions of power. Another point was avoid disharmony. So again, you avoid disharmony by placing the correct individuals into the correct positions. Correct government keeps the people happy and healthy, and it provides the platform from which to launch successful military campaigns against the enemy. And because of this interrelationship between the way of government being something that has techniques to train in, and the way of the military, of warfare being the same way, and because warfare and government are linked, and because a good, stable government provides an excellent platform for military campaigns, because of this, government is on the same continuum as warfare. Therefore, the text itself actually states that good government is a warfare tactic. So if you are serious about being a master strategist, a gungaku master, then you have to be able to implement lenient government. The next aspect of the power of the Tao is achieving harmony and freedom of choice. And so again, without going just reading the text, we're presenting key points from the text. The goal is to unite the people in harmony. Okay, and what does that mean in harmony? Before we get to that, let's say that the uniting the people in harmony, the citizens of the country, is the same need as needing to unite soldiers into a single mind. So that's harmony means whether it's the citizens or whether it's the soldiers, it's about giving everybody a single intent, uniting them into a single mindset. And that is the harmony that has been created. Because when the people are united behind a single purpose, right, then whether they're the people / soldiers, whether we're talking about the citizens and the government or we're talking about soldiers and the army, but when they're united behind a single purpose, they're able to move and shift freely. Like I said, this serves to make a functioning government, but it also makes an effective army. The unity of mind is how a group of dissimilar people unite and overcome obstacles and enemies, right? Because if you have too many people with too many just disconnected and jarring differences in their mindset, right? They're not unified. They can't look at each other and agree to fight alongside each other because of a common goal. When you have that situation, obviously it's a failure waiting to happen. Soldiers won't fight for each other if they can't get behind a unified purpose. The citizens cannot come together as a unified people if there's that lack of that unified purpose. But when there is that unified purpose, then people will come together and they will overcome obstacles, right? People from different backgrounds can come together to overcome obstacles if they can unite in that purpose. So, for example, when some kind of event or an attack takes place, unity of purpose is that thing that causes the soldiers to maintain their positions, or or to return to their post, right? It's what makes people attend to society's needs. The text, for example, gives an example. It says, like, for example, when someone is shocked or someone is scared or someone, their mind is thrown into chaos, and then they chant, homage to the triple gem, homage to the triple gem, homage to the triple gem, right? Then that returns them back to a calm mind, back to rational thinking, right? So it uses that example of sort of chanting homage to the triple gem, chanting that refuge mantra, and how that brings them back to a unified, rational point, right? It restores their concentration, is another way of saying it. So because of that, in the same way, when there's a shocking event, soldiers will hold their line, or if they are scattered, they will come back to fight. They will return to their post if they have that unity of purpose, right? And same for the citizens. Even though there may be a shock to society, the citizens will come back together when there is that unity of purpose. And that unity of purpose is what allows for people to be free and express themselves and do all of these different things. But when the time comes for them to face an obstacle, that unity of purpose is what, despite all the different freedoms, they will come back together to tackle and overcome that obstacle. In the Jingunden, it is explained as mercury. The way that you can have a blob of mercury and it can break into a bunch of little blobs of mercury that roll all over the place, but they all return back to form the original blob. So it's called the way of mercury in the Jingunden. Next, we have destroying enemies and obtaining soldiers. Correct individuals and skilled individuals. So they are correct and they are skilled, and when you have correct and skilled individuals in their correct positions from the start, they only become stronger and more skilled, right? So correct individuals, when placed in the correct positions, only become stronger. Skilled individuals, when put in the correct situation, only become more skilled. This is the critical piece of this one, right? This is why placing the correct individuals in the correct positions, because there's a natural growing that takes place. When you think this is a power of the Tao. So when you think of the power of the Tao, you think of, for example, Wu Wei, non-action, non-forcing. You don't have to force growth if you start with the correct person in the correct position, because they will naturally grow stronger, right? You don't need to do anything else. You just need to put the right person in the right position and they will naturally grow stronger. The state of the army will only improve, right, with lenient government and the skilled, correct individuals behind you. So when you have a lenient government and you have the correct individuals in the correct positions and there's a unified purpose, then the army will naturally grow stronger. This army will defeat enemy groups. Some enemies will die, some enemies will give up, and some enemies will be won over by your side and they will join your side. So again, destroying an enemy doesn't always mean to kill them. It can, like I said, it can mean that they die, but it can also mean that you've destroyed their will to fight. They give up. So or you convert them to your own cause. So when you destroy enemies, do you see how these are connected? So obtaining soldiers, it's so, like I said, some enemies die, but some enemies give up and some join your cause. So there's an aspect here almost of the awesomeness of your force, right? Because your government is so good and your army is so good, and you kill a certain amount of enemies so effectively, then you obtain more soldiers by the natural power of your army. People will leave the enemy and join you. So when an enemy leaves their side, that's equivalent to having defeated them. But rather than just kill a human being, you've actually obtained more soldiers. And so we'll close out with the final portion discussing liberation through wisdom and intelligence. With wisdom and intelligence, and you see I got experience and method in parentheses there. We'll get to that in a second. With wisdom and intelligence, you implement the previous three powers of the Tao to achieve victory 100 out of 100 times. So it's wisdom and intelligence is kind of like it's the final piece, right? We've explained you need lenient government, which is correct people in the correct positions, and then you need the unity of purpose, and then you have this decline of the enemy and the increase of your own side, and this is all capped off with wisdom and intelligence. But wisdom and intelligence, as the text says, in this particular case, it isn't referring to esoteric wisdom or esoteric intelligence. It's not referring to shunyata. In this particular case, it means experience and methods. So with experience and with methodology, that's the capstone for this piece, for the power of the Tao, right? So lenient government, unity of purpose, the sort of display of power which causes enemies to disappear and your own side to be bolstered, and then to cap it all off with experience and methodology, right? Because a good setup, because it's really basic. A good setup and good positioning equals victory. Bad setup with poor positioning equals defeat, right? As the text basically says, if you're in a superior position that your enemies are few and your allies are many, it's victory, right? And if your enemies are if your enemies are in disharmony and your allies are united, it is victory, you know. But if you are in a bad position and if you're in disharmony, then that's going to be a defeat for you, right? So it really, in so many ways, boils down to the simplicity of that. Is your side well structured and harmonious, or do you have bad positioning with disharmony? You know, these are factors that pretty much boils down to. So, and that's where you get into the study of government and the study of warfare not in terms of the techniques of attacking, but in terms of the techniques of of tactics, you know, the command structure, the techniques of being the guy calling the shots, right? The text also goes on to say, accept peace treaties from defeated enemies. Even if the enemy might intend to eventually try something, accept the peace treaty, and then set up networks and use allies for strategic positioning. Because one of the key factors here in this final power of the Tao is that once the enemy is defeated, you stop. Do not push for complete oblivion. Okay? When the enemy gives up, the war is over. Right? Because it's bad for the people, it's bad for the civilians of your enemy's country for you to continue to beat on the enemy. They're done, they're over, they're defeated, and to continue to just trash and maraud and destroy and kill and pillage is not a gentle government. It's not a compassionate government. And it's also terrible for your people because warfare, this goes back to Sun Tzu, warfare takes a toll on your people. Even when you're the side that's winning, warfare takes a toll. It costs money, it costs lives. Even though your side's winning, people are still going to die here and there, right? So you are losing people, and when you have one soldier dies, that's like one family that is now without a father and a husband, right? So for each guy on the battlefield that gets killed, there's a widow and a bunch of kids left behind, is like what Sun Tzu uses as an example. Plus, there's just the overall expenses of the war and how it taxes ultimately, draining the life out of a country. So when the battle's over, it's over. Finish it. Do not continue fighting. Like when the enemy is defeated, they're done. When they want a peace treaty, take the peace treaty. Do not push for indefinite warfare engagements, and do not push for oblivion. So this video was giving you that basic introduction to the Kusunoki teaching of the power of the Tao. And if you're wondering why the power of the Tao, if you're familiar with Sun Tzu's Art of War, for example, Sun Tzu's Tactics, and I also put it into my Fukushima Ryu Shinobi no Maki in Sacred Conspiracy. I also explained this too, but Tao refers to the government and the military command structure. So we know Tao as we know Tao as meaning like, the sacred Taoism Tao, but this has a government military definition of Tao. Tao means literally just the government procedures, the military command structure procedures. When you talk about the Tao of the military, it's like how to organize the soldiers and all of the different leadership organization aspects, etc., etc. So that's why it's the power of the Tao. These, like I said, these principles are foundational to Kusunoki tradition. Everything that you would study from the Kusunoki tradition rests within the context of these powers. They provide the world view. They are the deeper, esoteric, psychological, philosophical undertones, the actual heart of the techniques. And then all of the conspiracies and battle formations and stuff, those come later. Like in terms of later, like those, the all of the techniques, all of the different war techniques, the battle formations, the espionage, all of the different tactics, those can change over time. You pick and choose, you use which one is needed at the time. If something doesn't work anymore, then you can just update it, or you can make something new, etc., etc. But these deeper fundamental teachings, like the powers of the Tao, the powers of the truth, etc., etc., they don't change with time. They're very entwined to the human condition, and so they are the world view, and so therefore they become the foundation of the entire system. And then upon the foundation comes all of the, shinobi and battle tactics and, bows and arrows and conspiracies and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, those things are important. Those are the actual techniques. Those are the tools you use. But the heart of the system is these kinds of teachings. All right, and so the next video is going to be on the powers of reality and truth. And so because we're now at the end, we do the increasing merit mantra. So then you kind of think of, if you have any kind of, you can just sort of think like, any merit of sort of understanding the value of a lenient government or of compassionate sort of approach, like, any merit coming from the idea of not seeing war as attrition, but seeing war as an extension of government, right? And how you can change the way that you would sort of fight. Instead of war being a method to just murder the enemy, war becomes an extension of government. This kind of more compassionate viewpoint. Then you would sort of just increase that merit, and that merit can just sort of go out to all beings, right? So we say the mantra, Om Sambara Sambara Bhimanaskara Soaka, Om Sambara Sambara Bhimanaskara Soaka, Om Sambara Sambara Bhimanaskara Soaka. All right, thank you very much.